Hey guys, this is Norm Lanier from Daily Disney Photo. In today's tutorial, we're going to be talking about HDR. HDR is a technique of shooting 5 different or multiple exposures. In my case here, I've done 5 exposures, and we're going to merge them together using a couple of different pieces of software, and then we'll compare the differences and talk about the advantages and disadvantages of each one. So in this shot here, this is Gertie at Hollywood Studios. This is Hollywood Studios at Walt Disney World, and we've got the normal exposure. We've got 2 underexposed, 1 underexposed, 1 overexposed, and 2 overexposed. And now with as always in the tutorials that I do, I give you the ability to follow along with me because I have downloaded these for you, and we're going to go ahead and I'm going to walk you through the whole step process of importing these into Lightroom, and then we'll step through the different software packages that we've got, and we'll talk about the advantages and disadvantages of each one. So to bring the shots in, we're going to click on Library, and we're going to go to Import. Now you're going to find the photos located along with this tutorial at dailydisneyphoto.com. So if you're watching this on YouTube, there'll be a link below this to the tutorial, and you will find the 5 original images that you can download there and then follow along. So we're going to go ahead and go Import. Here we go. It's being kind of slow. And here are the 5 exposures that I talked about. We're just going to drag those here, and there we go. We've got the five images in place, ready to import. So we'll just hit the import button, and then we can start working with these. Now we're going to be working with 2 different tools from the same company, and the 2 tools that we're going to be using today are from this company called HDR Soft. The great thing about their software is that they come with 30-day demos. So you will be able to download these pieces of software that I'm about to talk about and try those out for 30 days and see if either one of them is a good fit for you. I own both, but they're both great tools. Now also, I'm going to tell you ahead of time that if you go out and do a search for Photomatix coupon, which is the first piece of software we're going to be working with, you can find a discount on this. This is just the software that I use. I'm not associated with the company in any way. I don't get a kickback from them in any form or fashion. It's just a tool that I like, and I'm going to pass along to you. So we're gonna. I'll give you an opportunity to go to the website and download the software. It's available for Macs and PCs. The URL is www.hdrsoft.com/download.html. And there's 2 pieces of software we're going to be talking about today. Photomatix Pro, which is the top one here, and the second one is down here at the bottom, and this is called Merge to 32-bit HDR plugin for Lightroom. With both of these pieces of software, well, especially this one here, this one only functions in Lightroom. Photomatix, on the other hand, is a standalone software package, and you do not have to have Lightroom or Photoshop or any other program to use this. But go ahead and grab that software now, and then join us back on the video. Okay, so now that you've got the software, you've got the 5 exposures loaded into into Lightroom. Again, our normal exposure, 2 under, 1 under, 1 overexposed, and 2 stops overexposed. So those are the 5 shots that we're going to be working with today. So the first thing that we're going to do is we're going to highlight the 5 photos that we're going to be working with. Now, Photomatix, one of the cool things about it is that, again, you don't have to have Lightroom to work with Photomatix, but Photomatix is really integrated deeply with Lightroom. And so one of the things that we can do in Lightroom that's great is if you just select the 5 images or any of the number of images that you have that you want to import, right click on it, go export, and as you notice there is a slot right here for Photomatix Pro. That's what we're going to be doing. You'll also notice that later on we're going to be doing this one merged to 32-bit HDR. In both cases, what's going to happen is Lightroom's going to export these images out, automatically load them into either one of the programs, and then after the program is done, we'll bring that new exposure back into Lightroom, and you'll see that later on. But let's just go ahead and export, and we'll go out to Photomatix Pro. Now let's talk about this screen right here and talk about what it's going to do. Now the first thing is do you want it to align the images? I always leave this on even if I have taken it on a tripod. There can be slight vibrations or movements of your camera, and what will happen is if you have images that are out of a line, you're going to get a ghosting type images or a multiple exposure type of thing. The second thing that it's going to do, and you won't see this so much on the tripod one, but if you are hand holding the camera, so for example you do a HDR exposure set during daylight, just hand holding it, I always have it crop the aligned image to eliminate the outside. You don't have to do that if you're a real stickler for getting every last pixel in, or wanting to control this part manually, you can just undo that. But for me, I have it always align the images, and then I have it crop the result. And in this case, again, this was taken on a tripod, so we don't have a whole lot of movement going on. Also, we have the option to remove ghosts, and this is a pretty powerful feature. For example, if we were shooting a shot and there was objects that moved in the shot, for example, people, vehicles, rides, anything with movement, trees on a windy day. If you select this option and turn it on, then the software will go in and pick the details from one exposure. Well, it allows you to pick which exposure you want to use, and it will use that as the base for eliminating ghosts. It does a pretty good job of it. It's not going to be perfect, but it does a pretty good job of eliminating ghosts since we are combining multiple exposures together. The next thing option would be to reduce noise. Personally, I just tend to leave this off. Since I'm working with Lightroom, Lightroom has great tools for reducing noise, so I just don't use that. And same thing with chromatic aberrations. Again, this isn't something that I feel this software is best suited for. If I want to control that, I will do that in Lightroom also. So we've got to automatically re-import this. This is what I was talking about. If you're using Lightroom, once the software is done, it's going to bring that new image back into Lightroom and bring it into the set of photos that you've got. So it will now be in the same place as the others. So I found that to be really useful. And then you can control the naming, and however you want to set that up. You also have control of the output format. For me, I want the maximum amount of detail and control, so I'm going with 16-bit TIFF. Warning that the techniques that I'm about to show you are going to use extreme amounts of HDR if you do enough of, are going to use extreme amounts of hard drive space if you're using either one of these pieces of software. But as we go through it, I think that you'll be able to see what these pieces of software can offer you as far as creative control over your pictures, and I think this is something that will bring a new level of interest or control to the photographs that you got. So what we're going to do now is just going to hit export, and you can see that it exported those images out, and it's now bringing all of those into Photomatix. And I'm going to bring this in here so that y'all can see what we've got going on. And there we go. So I'll fill this up a little bit larger. And this is the shot. Now what it's done is it's taken those 5 images that we had, and it has combined them all together, and it's pulled the best from each exposure. We have more detail in the sky area and in the shadows, and then in the highlight area of like these eyes and these lamps and the sign back here and so forth, we've got lots of detail there. So let's break it down and talk about the controls over here on the right hand side. So the first one is going to be strength. If we bring this down, you can see it make an adjustment to the photo on the right. I usually just leave the strength at maximum. Again, this is one of those things that you can just adjust for whatever you feel works for your situation. On color saturation, I usually leave that pretty close to the middle. I'm not wanting Photomatix to add or subtract a whole lot of saturation from the photo. I give it just a little bit of a bump here at 54. 50 right in the middle is no adjustment at all. The next one below that is tone compression, and if we bring this down, you will see an adjustment in the photo. Now this really is what the tone compression is, what and we're going to be using, and I forgot to mention, tone mapping. If you need to adjust that, this is the one that I use exclusively in Photomatix. We're going to be using tone compression, tone mapping, and here in the middle you can see that it doesn't look a whole lot different than the original, but if we crank this up, you can see how everything gets squished. Details in the highlights start to come out, and details in the shadows come up. So we're compressing everything towards the middle, and giving us a lot more detail in both areas that we wouldn't have normally been able to adjust. The next one here is detail contrast. It pretty much just adds contrast to the image. It darkens the details and makes your picture have this grainier, glowing sort of look that Photomatix is kind of known for. That is one of the results of using Photomatix, and some people don't like the look of it, others do, and we'll compare this to the merged to 32-bit HDR, which gives you less of that fantasy sort of feel that you get using Photomatix, but you'll notice that you get kind of a softer sort of glowing look to your images when you process them through Photomatix, and the thing that really highlights that is the tone compression and the detail contrast. That's that setting. The next one that we're going to talk about is the lighting adjustments. Now, in the lighting adjustments, this is one of those things that you literally just move the slider around until it looks good. It highlights and adds detail, brightness and darkness to different areas of the picture depending on what you select. And there is no right or wrong way to do this. You just move it around and look at your photograph while you're doing it, and when you find something that you like, you just leave it there. And again, there's no right or wrong, and it's going to vary on every image. So just make that adjustment until you feel it's right. There's a lighting effects mode. I don't typically use that, so I'm not going to go into I'm not going to go into any detail about that. If that's something that you want to play with, just click it, and then you can go in and play around with this tool. It's not something that I use, so I'm just going to leave that off. So now we're going to go down into the next set area, which is where we make adjustments to how it handles the image itself. So smoothing highlights kind of just does what the name implies. It tends to just kind of compress the image out, and I don't see a whole lot of change in this particular image, but if we had a lot of light areas, you would see an adjustment in when we slid this one around. This image not so much. I'm not really seeing a whole lot of change there. And one of the quick techniques for setting controls back to 0 here in Photomatix and also Lightroom is that if you just double click on the name of whatever the tool is, it will reset itself to 0. So that's a quick little technique that works just as well in Lightroom to set things to 0 quickly. Just double click on the name. Next thing we're going to talk about is white point. Now white point really just kind of controls how bright you want the image to be, where you say things reach kind of a point of a lot of light. And again, this is one of those things, just depending on the photograph, that you can make adjustments for. To me, this area here probably looks pretty good, and kind of once you find your settings, you're going to find that that's going to work for the majority of your pictures, but there's always going to be exceptions. The next thing that we're going to be doing is black point, and black point is really something that I see a lot of people miss when they do processing. Let's go ahead and bring black point way down. And one of the things that you'll notice when I did that was that the entire image got brighter. But what you also noticed is that everything got a lot flatter. If you don't have good blacks, then you don't have that contrast to make your highlights pop. So I'm going to just throw this in and see. That looks a little bit dark to me. I think I'll bring it back just a little bit. That right there. And for me, that's a good balance of highlights and darks, where we've got good solid blacks to give us some contrast. The next area that I'm going to make our next control that we have is gamma. And gamma really you can kind of think of as exposure. If we want to move it this direction, the image is going to get lighter. If we move it this direction, the image is going to get darker. Here at 1 in the middle is where we were before. I always leave it there. If I want to make adjustments to the exposure or to the brightness, then I'm going to do that in Lightroom, and I'm not going to do it here. The next one that we've got is temperature, and temperature is kind of just, again, what the name implies. It's going to make the image either warmer or cooler depending on where you've got it. Again, this is one of those things that I just leave set to 0 because that's an adjustment that I would make in Lightroom. Next one that we've got is MicroSmoothing. Now this is where things can get pretty interesting as far as the look that you can get, and unfortunately it's one of the areas that HDR is really, or Photomatix in my opinion, is really abused this feature is really abused, because what people will do is they'll bring it down to this this 0 setting, and you'll see what happens. And even this one's not as bad as what I typically see, but things get really gritty. It gives the photo a really gritty look. You'll notice how much how lumpy the skin on Gertie now looks. If you look here in the sky, you'll see a lot of grain and a lot of noise, and this is what happens when you have MicroSmoothing completely turned off. Now there are times when, on rare occasions, where I've wanted that look, and again, each photo is going to be different, so how you use it is up to you. But as you come up in MicroSmoothing, what you're going to see is that it's gonna blend the tones more closely together, so you get less contrast with differences in the photo. And again, where that perfect spot is completely a subjective thing. So just move the MicroSmoothing around until you find a spot that works best for your particular image. So now we've got that. Next one is saturation in the highlights, and like if you watch right here in the eyes and in this light, again, it kind of just does what the name implies. It adds saturation to the highlights, and you can see now how the lights and the eyes here have really become more saturated in color. Not something that I want to do in this photograph. And there may be situations where you do want to bring that up or down, but in this situation not. And then saturation in the shadows just does the same thing. It's going to take the dark areas and make them more saturated while leaving the highlights untouched. Shadow smoothness will just kind of blend, doesn't do a whole lot, but you'll see in the darker images it tends to kind of muddy the difference in the darknesses, and it's one of those things that I really almost never use. And then shadow clipping is you saying, if any tones fall below this certain point, I want you to make them completely black. And again, here's one of those that I never use, and in this particular instance, I really don't even see any effects when I'm doing that. So that one's one that we'll just set back to 0. So that's it. So we've got our image here. I've kind of got the settings that I like. So we're just going to hit save and re-import. So you'll see here in a second that it will close down or minimize Photomatix, and then if we give it a few seconds here, it should automatically re-import that image that it just created. I may have already done it here. Let's see. Okay, I had to pause and check that myself because I wasn't sure what was going on. It shows that we've got one of two, so it's indicating that it's brought the image back in, but I only still see 5 images, and when I click on this, I don't see anything else reappear. The reason why is because we're looking over here. When we brought it into the catalog, we just brought it in as the previous import. That's not the photographs, all the photographs that we have. That's just showing you what was there on the previous import. So to find the correct one. Now this is one of those situations where I didn't realize what was going on. I can see that it's brought that second photo in. You can see that we've got 2 here in the stack in Lightroom, but when I click on it, I only see 1, and I could not figure out what was going on with this situation. The problem that we've got here, and why this has happened, is because we've got previous import selected, which is the default when you import images in. If we look, these images were shot 2013, November 17, 2013. So if we come down here, you'll notice that we've got 6 photos. So if we switch to that mode and then click on this, there's our missing image. So that little puzzle got solved. Let's do a comparison of these two images and just side flipping back and forth between the two. This is that normal JPEG. This is the exposure that the camera defaulted to when it was shot. And this is our new one, which is, as you can see, has a lot more color, a lot more detail than the previous ones. You can see before that we've got almost no detail back here in the trees, the previous one. Now we've got a lot of detail back there. You can see how much brighter the sky is. The tonality is has a lot more going on for it and a lot more detail also. So that's the comparison of those two. In the next video, what we're going to do is we're going to export out the 5 original exposures again. This time we'll do it to, we're going to do it to 32-bit, export to merge to 32-bit HDR, which will just merge the images together really with into the 5 exposures into one without without making any adjustments to it. As far as tonality, but all of the information will go from 5 images down to 1 image, and that's going to give us an advantage when we go into Lightroom to make adjustments in exposure. So that's it for this first part of the tutorial. On the next one, again, we'll cover 32-bit HDR merge, and then we will talk about the settings that we've got in Lightroom. We'll go through and make adjustments on the original, the normal shot, the one from Photomatix, and then we'll make an adjustment to the 32-bit HDR image that is generated with the Lightroom plugin. So that's it for now, and we will talk again soon. Thanks, everybody.